11:35 on the Big Show clock. Bob Quinn, the Big Show today, and we are celebrating a change in weather. Get this rain out of here. We're headed for some cooler temperatures, it looks like. Good corn growing weather ahead, huh? Being brought to you by Hertz Real Estate Services, farmland auction, brokerage, and evaluations. By the way, I just received an update from the Iowa State Fair, and it says due to recent storms at the fairgrounds receiving up to 3 inches of rain last night, only enter the fairgrounds if you have official business there. Campgrounds are closed, and they will reassess the situation sometime around the noon hour here. So they're looking at it closely and following along here. And it says they appreciate everyone's patience and understanding as they're preparing for the great Iowa State Fair. But, yeah, fairgrounds, well, it's like everybody else, picked up a lot of rainfall overnight, and they'd like to deal with that water and get that taken care of, more traffic on the fairgrounds. So that's the latest update on Iowa State Fair for the opening of that fair here a week from tomorrow. Again, being brought to you by Hertz Real Estate Services, farmland auction, brokerage, and evaluations. A big thank you to the gang there at Hertz Real Estate Services. Brian Hoops on the telephone line with us. Haven't talked to Brian in a while. He was kind of kidding me a little bit today. He said, I haven't heard from you for a while. I said, well, Brian, I was hoping to put you on in a day we had upward movement in all the markets, and we've been waiting for quite a while for that. We do have some upward movement, I guess, in corn. So Brian with Midwest Market Solutions. I guess we're up, a penny or so in December corn.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we saw any green on that corn, Bob. It's up days in corn market. Beans have been few and far between for quite some time here. So yeah, we've got just a penny bounce in the corn market. We're just hovering above those lows that we scored in mid-July, and that's still going to be a downside target for this market, the 407.5 area. Soybeans, they're holding right at the $10 mark, and they have that same support from mid-July, about $9.98. So those are your targets on the downside here, and we're getting closer and closer on the soybean market to getting to that target. The only thing really supporting the corn, we had some private sales of corn earlier this week. We had a large sale, 65,000 metric tons of corn to Taiwan this morning. It was not on the reporting system because that's at a minimum of 100,000 metric tons. So we're starting to see a little bit better business for the corn market. But you look at the big picture here, if you step back and look at it, the spreads between like September and December, they're still widening out, telling us that the market really doesn't want the crop right now, telling us that we're building a carry in place. And while we're doing that, that's not bullish for the market whatsoever. When those spreads start to change, that's a bullish indication. We're starting to see that in Kansas City wheat. So that's a market that look for that market to find some support in here. But you're not seeing that at all in corn or soybeans. And look what's happening with the U.S. dollar, Bob. We're trading at 5-week highs. That trend broke a couple weeks ago from a downtrending market to an uptrend. And since then, we've started to uncover more buying interest, more short covering. We're trading about 99.27 in the September U.S. dollar contract. My first target on the upside is 99.86. I don't think we're done going back to the upside yet. We still have more strength in that market to come here, probably in the weeks to come, and that's also going to hurt corn, soybean values, as well as the seasonal tendencies, which are lower at this time frame.
Yeah, and give me about a minute on what that dollar trend impact into the commodity market is.
So, we talked, there was news over the weekend of Argentina lowering their export taxes into the world marketplace. That makes them more competitive because foreign buyers can go to Argentina, pay less tax to buy their product, makes it cheaper. Here, with the higher U.S. dollar, the currency conversion rates are actually increasing. When the dollar gets higher, foreign buyers' currencies gets cheaper, and it's an adverse effect for buying interest in our products. It actually appears to be more expensive rather than less expensive. And so that's a concern that, of course, we're going to have for farmers going forward here is we're focused on so much supply right now that once the crop gets harvested, we can kind of transition to demand trends. But if the dollar is stronger, that may mean less demand for our products overall.
Well, the other issue I think we're going to be looking at pretty soon is we're not that far away from starting to get a sampling of corn harvest in southern states here. That could be, at least an indicator of what kind of crop we're sitting on.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, we've had clients from Texas that are just starting to pick some corn there and just kind of getting going on things. And, they're telling us really big crop, a really huge crop is what they're experiencing so far. Of course, that's very early and down south in Texas, but at least, that is enough to fill the pipelines, especially with some old crop farmer selling that's still trickling in, enough to kind of fill the pipelines, meet some of the demand right now. And then as we get into fall, of course, we'll have a lot of product that is going to have to find a home, whether that's stored commercially or at home. Hopefully we can, keep moving it through the pipelines, get the product moving and see, stronger demand like we did this last year. We're near record demand for our corn product as far as exports go. Ethanol usage has been very good, so we're using a lot of this product. It's just we have too much supply, not only in the U.S., but also in the world right now.
Well, speaking of some upward movement, we're up again in live cattle. We're going to save that, I think, Brian, for about an hour and 10 minutes away, talk a little bit about what's going on in the live cattle and feeder cattle market. In the meantime, folks want to find out more about what you're doing there. How can they do that?
Yeah, we're hitting contract highs, as you mentioned, in the cattle market. So you can visit our website, MidwestMarketSolutions.com, or you can find a list of all of our offices there and our phone numbers. My number directly is 417-501-5132. Hello, Brian here.
Hey, Brian. This guy with WHO on the Big Show.
Yeah.
Looks like I'm going to have you on here pretty soon. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm ready for you.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Just about a minute.
Of Iowa. Newsradio WHO.
Showers and thunderstorms this Wednesday, a high of 76. More rain expected overnight, a low of 62. But we warm up and clear up on Thursday, sunny with a high of 76. Cooler Thursday night, a low of 55. I'm Tyler Allen.
This report is sponsored by ExpressPros.com. Is it time for a new job? Then it's time for Express Employment Professionals. Quit the endless online job search. Enlist the pros. Let a local recruiter from one of their 870 locations help. And Express never charges job seekers a fee. Go to ExpressPros.com.
Food, fuel, and fun. We speak farm. This is the Big Show.
And we love speaking farm on the Big Show, 1254. Welcome back to the Big Show. Dwayne Murley taking us right up till 1 o'clock here this afternoon. And as promised, we've got Brian Hoops on the phone right now with Midwest Market Solutions. And tell you, Brian, when I came in and looked at the markets first thing this morning at about 4 o'clock, we were basically trading on both sides of unchanged. But, boy, those soybeans, they've kind of been pulled down here this morning, trading about 11 1/4 cents in each of the contract months right now. Corn actually on both sides are actually trading just slightly higher here. So what's going on with the grain markets here today?
Yeah, we're hitting about a 3-month low in soybeans. We're really knocking on the door. When I talked at 11:30, we were a few pennies away from the support area, but now we've fallen to it, broke the $10 mark in November beans, sitting on the lows from mid-July. So, yeah, 3-month lows here, testing that support. Then we have further downside risk, 965, 975 on the November charts. And it's just too good of growing conditions out there. Just the weather forecast into August, and now we're looking into almost mid-August. Looks nearly ideal for corn and soybean development with very little weather threats. We have news from Argentina that they're lowering their export taxes, making them more competitive on the world marketplace, and a higher U.S. dollar. We're at a 5-week high in the U.S. dollar, which in theory should make our products less price competitive. So it's coming at a time where the market's really focused on supply, and we have, looks like, what is going to be a very huge supply of corn and soybeans waiting to be harvested, and that is going to, I'm afraid, cap the rallies here. So once we get into the harvest, you can kind of start watching spreads and how they relate to the marketplace. And we'll start building a big carry out in the deferred futures. But once that carry starts to maybe move a little bit and shift from a full carry and starting to tighten, that's maybe a sign that the markets have found some sort of a bottom. We're seeing that in Kansas City wheat now that harvest is virtually wrapped up in the plains. We're starting to see those basis and those spreads shift a little bit. Front month Kansas City starting to gain against some of the deferred contracts, and that's one thing to look for going forward in the corn and soybean markets, is not so much as a reversal type day or a day that we close higher, but what the spreads are doing, and that's going to give us a better indication longer term of what's happening with this market.
And Brian, as we wrap up here, we got about a minute or so. Looks like probably going to see some new contract highs in live cattle and feeder cattle again today.
We sure are. Haven't really seen that really strong cash trade develop, but it does look like we're expected to see it at some point. We've heard a little bit of trade yesterday, kind of at steady to higher money, and markets, reacting like we're going to see much higher money this week as we're hitting contract highs in live and feeders across the board.
And then how about the hog complex? The only thing lower is that August contract. Everything else about $0.50 higher right now.
Yeah, they had really washed out yesterday. There was 200-point losses in most of those deferred contracts, and they're moving higher. August is probably going to have a limited as far as downside risk because it aligns itself with that lean hog index, and that index, it'll go off the board in another 2.5 weeks or so, and tries to align that index, which is actually trading higher than where the futures are. So not much downside risk probably in the August contract at this point in time.
All right, Brian, how can folks reach out to you?
You can reach me directly, 417-501-5132, or you can go online, MidwestMarketSolutions.com, and find a list of all of our offices.